August 28th, 1925 was a very important day for Blessed Vasyl Velychkovsky. It was the day that he made his monastic vows, his religious vows in the congregation of the Most Holy Redeemer, Redemptorists. Blessed Vasyl's vocation has a long story. It comes from a priestly family, so he lived in an atmosphere of his father being a priest, and so church was part of his life. Yet it was when he was a young man, 15 years old, in the C.Ss.R in the army, when he finds himself imprisoned. The young age of 16, he's imprisoned, and is in the prison cell that we hear of his, one can say perhaps, gift of a priestly vocation, when he felt in his heart, he says, the presence of Christ, and that Jesus was calling him to be his soldier, to fight for the church, to be a warrior for Christ, a champion for Christ. But that was when he was a young boy. He entered, after he was freed from prison, or rather escaped from prison, he entered the seminary. He was quite young, 18 years old, entered the seminary in Lviv and began to study theology. It was in the third year of his studies, when he was 21 years old, that he was on a retreat in April and had the sense that God was calling him to be celibate. He had went to the Lviv seminary directly because his home seminary in Stanislavia was for only non-married priests, for celibate priests. It had that condition that to be in a seminary, you must be celibate, and that is not married. So he went to Lviv, but in that third year, he had this feeling that God was calling him something more. And after several more reflections, he was ordained a deacon in that spring of 1924. He said that summer, his auntie, a religious sister of the Basilian order, Sister Maria Monica, came to him and said, can you accompany me to Zboysk, the Redemptorist monastery? He heard very little about Redemptorists. Redemptorists just came to Ukraine in 1913. Of course, with the war, they were just starting to grow. And she said, I have a spiritual matter to speak with my spiritual director, Father Joseph Scrivers. And so he went with her to our Redemptorist monastery in Zboysk. He says, I was outside having a smoke while my auntie went in to speak with Father. And at one point, Father came and invited me into the monastery. And without further ado, he opened his arms. He was a short, jolly priest, and says, welcome, welcome. Go home for 2 weeks for a small vacation. You're welcome to come and join our novitiate. Blessed Vasyl said he was sort of taken back by that because he had not asked. He had not asked to be admitted. He had not asked to join the Redemptorists. He didn't even know who they were. First time he's meeting Father Scrivers. But he said nothing. He said, when I left, normally you should be angry at someone overstepping their boundaries like that, because I never even asked. He says, but I felt such a joy in my heart. And so he went home. In 2 weeks' time, on August the 2nd, he came to novitiate. He says, soon after he arrived, he quit smoking, and he began his novitiate on August 27th, 1924, at the ripe age of 21. The novitiate lasts a whole year and a day, so on August the 28th, he professed his vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, and perseverance in the congregation of the Most Holy Redeemer, the Redemptorists. I'd like to just share a bit of Blessed Vasyl's heart. This is his response that he gives when he first was invited to come to novitiate. In his autobiography, he reads, "This was a response without any question on my part, without any request. I had a right, humanly speaking, to be annoyed, or at least to say that I myself had neither requested to be accepted, nor asked my aunt to mediate for me. However, I said nothing. I only said goodbye and left with my aunt, with whom I also spoke not a word about this matter. In spirit, I was so easy, so joyful, a fullness of grace, like a flash flood overwhelmed my soul. There were no words on my lips, nor on my aunt's lips, because this old religious woman and I, who stood on the threshold of the monastery, both of us understood the weight and the wonder of this event. Not earthly, not human, but heavenly and divine, the grace of a monastic vocation." And when he had completed his novitiate after a 10-day retreat, he describes it very briefly. He says, "After a 10-day retreat, then came the rite of temporary vows for 3 years. Some of my family were also at this monastic celebration, my mother, and I think my Aunt Monica. Actually, I don't remember now who else was there, for I was ecstatic, in a trance, full of joy. And my joy was reflected on the faces, certainly too, and in the hearts of my family." And he says that this joy of belonging to the congregation of the Most Holy Redeemer remained with him his entire life. So we commemorate this day, August 28, 1925, soon to be 100 years, since Blessed Vasyl took his vows, his full dedication to serve our Lord as a Redemptorist.